You find yourself distraught in the movie theater as the screen fades to black. You look to your party mate who looks back to you and says, "Well, that was something, wasn't it? What did you think?" What do you respond?
I definitely wasn't distraught watching that movie. Um, Dungeons and Dragons, it was okay. It was pretty funny. I liked Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine together. The movie definitely started stronger than it ended, that's
Right.
for sure. But with Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine, their chemistry together, it was giving me like Tulio and Miguel from El Dorado,
Okay.
DreamWorks El Dorado.
Right.
Like just the way that like they had that funny banter and they were always finding themselves in some crazy situation, but
Right.
together with their friendship and their wit, they were always able to get out of it.
Hmm.
It was like just giving me those same vibes. But that was cool for the first like 30 minutes of the movie maybe, but they kind of just start repeating the same thing. They probably do the same thing like 20 times within a 2 hour movie. So by the end of it, you definitely get tired of it. By the end of it, it was actually giving me like Dora the Explorer vibes
Really?
with like, all right, here's our map and here's where we have to go and here's what we have to do in each place.
Right.
And are we going to be able to do it? I don't
Right.
know.
I'm pretty.
But big shocker, yes, we are, because that's how the movie works. It's like we have to be able to finish this thing before we get to this thing.
Right.
So that part, it just got very repetitive, like very repetitive. They just were doing the same thing over and over. And it's like, I don't think the movie needed to be 2 hours just so you could keep doing the exact same thing.
Right.
But
Right.
at the same time, I couldn't think of like what they should have cut out to shorten it. So it's like they tried to make everything feel necessary, but there's just no reason for that movie to be that long
Yep.
at all.
Yep.
It kind
True.
of upset me by the end, actually. But what did you think?
I feel kind of torn about D&D because I was really excited to see it. And I agree that the beginning is really good and it's a lot funnier than I thought it would be throughout. And so it just starts really funny. The action also is really good. Every action set piece, I was really just at the edge of my seat and just from beginning until end, I was really enjoying it. Um, but I do agree that the pace, I don't know, it's like you said where the pacing I can't see what they should have cut out, but it felt too long because the parts that were good were really good, but when it did get slow, it was the most painful,
Yeah.
excruciating. My legs almost instinctively started kicking. I don't know why. I never feel that during movies, but I felt irritable during that movie
You
because
know, I've never, a feeling I never feel during movies is the feeling to get up and walk out. And I wasn't
yeah.
even like enraged, but I just like, it just felt like such a natural feeling at one point to just get up and just leave the theater. And I was like looking over at you to see if you like felt it too, but it just felt like the movie just got so slow
Yeah.
at one point that like I was like, well, I could leave right here, honestly.
For real, because you get the beginning. Chris Pratt's great. Um, Michelle
Oh, you mean
Rodriguez is
Chris
great.
Pine?
Yeah, Chris Pine. Chris Pratt's not great.
No,
Chris
he's
Pine
not
is
great.
great. Michelle Rodriguez is good. That first fourth, I'd say, but the second fourth and the third fourth, I kept finding myself where I wanted to enjoy it, but it was just so painfully slow. And every now and again, you would get a chuckle, but it was nothing compared to like the real laughs you were getting. So then it just started. I felt overwhelmed a lot of the movie. I was like, this is so much lore that I don't understand and that they're not explaining to me
Yes.
that halfway through the movie I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I was seriously I started dozing off maybe 3 times during the movie and I really enjoyed it, which doesn't normally happen also.
I feel like this movie could have been a Netflix show.
Yeah, it should have been a
It should have
Netflix
been.
show.
They could have focused on the lore more. They could have kept repeating those same jokes over and over, but it would have been spread out
Yeah.
amongst like different episodes rather than us in one sitting watching a movie use like the same thing in the same formula over and over and over again.
Right. And it's not even that it is good and like it just you need a break for
Yeah,
a
you
movie like this
do.
for this heavy lore driven stuff. Even Lord of the Rings, they give you like an epilogue before the stuff starts so you at least have a base ground to start off. But this game, it's kind of they just assume that you know every like the hibbity flibbity and it goes to the hoobity doobity
Yeah, I
and
was
then
like, well, or like even the name of the creatures. Like I thought some of the creatures looked really cool, but like I can't even tell you what word they were using for that girl because they had like really thick accents, kind of,
yeah, they had
and
accents.
so I'm like, were they calling her a drurg,
Draugr, I
a
think. A
drogger?
Draugr,
I feel
yeah,
like
with the
neither one of
ER.
us is probably using the right word for what
I
she is.
think
I feel
it's
like if we
Draugr.
looked it up,
I think I've heard that term before. It's
it
Draugr.
is drogger.
But when I feel like when I hear that term, it's I don't know. I feel like every time I hear it, it's in a different context.
And I thought that whatever Draugr, I thought her design was cool and stuff, and her power was cool. And I thought some of the CGI was pretty good, and I thought the costumes were pretty good too. And I also thought the acting was good, but it was just too much for one movie. I was really wishing I could have paused it. There's
Yeah,
so many times where I wished I could have just paused it and like came back and finished it another day.
for real. Because it's not a bad movie. There is a good movie in there, but it's just too much for one sitting.
And too much repeating in one
Yeah,
sitting.
because if like people who play Dungeons and Dragons, a general Dungeons and Dragons campaign can be from like 8 to 10 hours, like even 6 to 10 hours, and you're trying to condense an entire campaign like that into 2 hours. It's just too much. But overall, though, would you recommend going and seeing this movie?
I would say no, not in theaters. If it comes out on TV for free somewhere, I would say check it out so that you can like pause it at home and pick it up another time.
Right.
But I would not recommend anyone go see this in theaters. It's way too long for what it is. And there were
For real.
so many times where I just kept thinking it was over or almost over, and it would just keep going and going and going. And it's like, it did not need to be that long for what it was.
Yeah, for real. And it's not even where it's like we miss the movie literally ends with a good, fulfilled, happy ending. And then and you're thinking like, yeah, the movie's over. And then out of nowhere the fingers start coming out of the sky. And then you start thinking like, oh damn, they're just gonna leave it on a cliffhanger. They're just setting up for a sequel and they're gonna end it right here. But no, there's another 40 minutes of the movie after that. It ends three times in a row before it's
Yeah.
actually over. And to kind of whether I would recommend it or not, I think I agree with you that I would leave it to just watch it on streaming, rent it, but don't go out of your way to go see this
No.
unless you are a true fan. I can't even tell you if anything in the movie was accurate to the games because I don't really play. But if you're a big D&D fan, if you really are heavy into the fantasy genre, I do think you can have a really good time with it
I'd actually
because
like to know I'd like to ask someone who plays Dungeons and Dragons or who's a big fan of it how they feel about the movie because I wonder how accurate they would feel it is. Because
right.
I mean, they do make some game references. Like, I've never played the game, and even I could tell they were trying to make game references
Hmm.
at certain points. But I don't know. And there was one really funny part where they found a way to explain like the rules of the game
Yep,
in a
yep.
context that made sense for what they were doing, for like the journey they were going on. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, I'd like to know what someone who's a big fan of the game thinks because we probably didn't understand a lot of the references.
Oh yeah, and I did feel like a lot of it was references to real stuff in the game, and that's a big reason of why I was like left out, because of it. It's like
I
when you
mean, the
have
hither thither, that definitely sounds like something
he's like we
a
got the
bunch of
boobity
people made
jubity over
up
here, and it's just
playing a
for yeah,
game.
yeah, exactly. But if you're into D&D, if you're into that kind of stuff, you might like it, but definitely don't pay full price for it. It ain't worth it. All right, guys. Well, if you liked the video, thanks for watching. Subscribe and come join us next time.